Cocoa is a city of contrasts. Along the Indian River, charming Cocoa Village continues to draw visitors and new businesses. Elsewhere, the big news is Cocoa's upcoming summit with residents eager to prevent crime. For a report on the city's progress, I sat down with Cocoa City Manager John Titkanich, who has helped elected leaders write a new strategic plan for the city. While I had his ear, I asked Titkanich about proposed train service through the city and next year's plans for taxing and spending. Watch. John, we have something coming up in the city of Cocoa, September 30th, the Mayor's inaugural Crime Awareness and Prevention Summit. I know crime's a big issue in Cocoa, has been for some time. Why a summit? Why now? What's going on?
Well, the catalyst for the summit and the issue of addressing crime was that the city, in the early part of this year, engaged in a strategic planning initiative, and crime was one of the issues that we identified as of a paramount importance. And as the budget process, we kind of got to one point, we suspended, we got the budget process, so we're picking up because we don't want to lose any time. But you know, we're making a lot of progress with crime. In the first 6 months of this current year with the UCR reporting, our crime's down 22% across the board. But that's progress. It's not success. We need to continue to work, and we've kind of internally have a goal of trying to reduce crime by 50% over the next 4 years. And we want to have lofty goals, and because citizens and businesses and visitors of Cocoa have an expectation, and we want to deliver on that expectation, that they'll be safe and not be a victim of a crime against person or property.
So what's going to happen at this summit?
It's going to be an open forum in terms of where essentially we have a group of panelists from representing the NAACP, our chief of police, the sheriff has RSVP that he's going to participate in the panel, State Attorney Phil Archer. We have invited our state senator Altman and Speaker Chris Foley, who has tentatively agreed to be in attendance. Our mayor will be leading it. And then we also have a representative from nonprofit, Crosswinds Youth, and faith-based community, Pastor Beckford. And then also we've asked the Florida Today, because part of the issue is the perception of crime occurring and how we can do a better job at communicating our successes. For instance, we had 2 homicides in the last month, and the most recent one, it was solved, and the suspect was in custody and confessed within 12 hours. So I think that speaks highly to the competency and the responsiveness of the Cocoa Police Department. But arresting people are one thing. We need to create that dialogue among the community, look at other issues. When you look at Cocoa, generally speaking, we have a lower educational attainment rate, higher unemployment rate, higher poverty rate, and there's just some systemic issues. And they all affect crime or chronic crime. So we want to have a discussion and a community dialogue on what we can do in terms of addressing those issues and as they relate and they correlate to crime. So it's facilitated by a professor out of Flagler College, and there'll be a small presentation by myself and the chief of police, and they'll turn it over to the panel. There'll be opportunity for community input to present their issues. We've already posted on the city's website, on the city forum or the blog site, where people can post their questions in advance or post comments, and we've disseminated all the flyers on the summit to the churches, to faith-based communities, nonprofits, and we're just getting the word out, inviting board members that are involved in the city, because we want a true community dialogue. We don't want a major incident happen and then try to have to be reactive. We want to be proactive. Our police department is doing a lot of innovative programs, from community policing, moving more towards a predictive policing model, using our new crime analysts to identify where crime hotspots are, implementing that street crimes unit. The last time you and I were here, we talked that we reconstituted, and then and then the community relations component.
Right.
So,
you mentioned a major incident, Ferguson, and the rioting that happened up there after a police shooting. It seemed like they were not having conversations, and maybe there wasn't diversity on their police forces and other kinds of issues. Sounds to me like this is in part an attempt to build those relationships at the front end so that you don't have the kind of blow up. Is that what you're getting at?
Well, I mean, but also you need to, in part, yes, but you need to have that dialogue with the community.
Yeah.
You know, we need to understand what they perceive to be the issues.
What kind of crime
yes,
most concerns them?
What concerns them the most. You know, the other thing that I mentioned that we did this last year, I think we were the first agency in the county we piloted the body cameras. And this upcoming year, every patrol officer and patrol sergeant will be having a body camera, you know, in the next fiscal year. We'll be purchasing that. So everybody on our patrol, and that's an issue of officer safety and responsibility, and it also from a risk management and liability standpoint from the citizen's perspective, we're protecting and managing those tax dollars so we're not subjecting ourselves to potential lawsuits that are maybe that are not properly merited.
To what degree are some of the, you mentioned a pastor was coming to this, at least one. Yes. Probably there will be more.
There'll be more, yes.
I was going to ask you, to what degree are some of the churches and those organizations partners with the city, and whether it's officially or not in Cocoa?
Well, we have a number of churches that are involved, working with, some of them are work with people that are trying to re-enter the workforce after, you know, coming out of, you know, the system. You know, having been arrested, been to prison, been to jail, and they're trying to help them gain the skills, the employability skills to come back in and enter the workforce. We also have nonprofits, you know, like the Alliance for Neighborhood Restoration, who work with our youth, and they work with our Cocoa Police Athletic League, and they create those relationships with the youth, and they give them the skills, and they give them those items that they need to succeed, you know, in life, and try to, you know, not, you know, when you see the police, that you're not automatically like, you know, have that adverse relationship. We want we want a collaborative and partnership.
I see. You know, and one of the big issues I know in not just Cocoa, Rockledge, even Melbourne, other places, was that culture among people among whom a lot of the homicides would happen, revenge shootings and killings, and the no snitching culture, where everybody would know who shot somebody, and they knew who was going to get shot next, but nobody wanted to talk. It sounds to me like some of the churches have been taking efforts, like you mentioned, to reach out to these people and diffuse things, maybe show them another path for resolving their frustrations and not letting those things become crimes in the first place.
I think it's an excellent point, you know, because the community and the police department have to work together. And we've certainly had experiences where, you know, we know there was witnesses, but yet they were apprehensive about coming forward, whether it's a trust factor or a fear factor. And the faith-based community has been just, I can name a number of the churches, but they have been just critical, you know, in helping us in our efforts to protect the citizens and to hold those accountable that commit crimes against person.
Let's move on to some of the other things and issues that are affecting the city of Cocoa.
Okay.
I know that economic development is big for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I think the city adopted a couple of new types of incentives. Explain.
This past year, you know, economic development is one of our strategic issues. You know, how can we compete both within the county and regionally? We do have an ad valorem tax abatement program, which is up for voter approval for reauthorization, but we did budget some money for an economic development incentive fund because many times some of the state incentives require a local match. We do have a web of resources, or at least a web of resources through our enterprise zone program, the brownfields program, the community redevelopment agencies. You know, we're also a designated hub zone, historically underutilized business zone. So we try to use those and build this framework to allow us to maximize in attracting businesses and retaining businesses and helping them grow. So, as a matter of fact, just last week, our mayor and council and key members of staff, we went out and we visited with manufacturers in our community to hear from them, to find out what their concerns were, to find out how their business is doing. Is there anything that the city can do to assist them? Because if you can't retain your existing businesses, you probably don't need to be out recruiting other businesses. So we want to work and make sure that we provide an environment that's conducive for, you know, for them to do business within the city of Cocoa.
What did they say? What did the manufacturers say?
You know, a lot of it, some of the things that we talked about was workforce, you know, in terms of manufacturers, that you have some of the employees, they're starting to get in their latter part, so you got to have those replacement employees trained. So you got to have people that are going to come up through the system and have those job skills. So when we look at like our strategic plan, and we look at the fact that we have a high percentage of those that have a high school diploma or less, those might be candidates that we can identify for a proper workforce training program.
Okay.
In our Diamond Square redevelopment plan update that we will be taking to the county commission, it calls for a community center, but it's more than a community center. While it's going to focus on activities for the youth and meeting space for the elderly, and there we're also looking at the when you have a single family headed household, child care is a concern. So maybe there's a opportunity for a child care center, opportunity for a federally qualified health clinic. Then on the other side, you have business support services, such as to advise minority business owners on how to run their business, like an incubator, and then even having career and workforce provision. So it's really when you look at all the systemic issues that the city faces that affect crime and affect quality of life in the Diamond Square area, this community center could be like the catalyst and the pinnacle of trying to help reverse, decades of just systemic conditions that have existed, that have pervaded over the years and allowed poverty to continue.
I went up and toured, before it was open, the Emma Jewell Charter Academy. I think that's in the Diamond Square area, isn't it? It used to be the old segregated Monroe High School. Now there's an educational entrepreneur up there who grew up in the area, trying to open this school for taking on some of the kids who any other school would consider to be the hardest to bring along because of the poverty. Mm-hmm. But there are challenges. First year out, not great grades for the school. Probably not unexpected, but what do you make of that project?
We enjoy the relationship with Mr. Cole and Emma Jewell and his staff. Matter of fact, later today, myself and the police chief are going to be meeting with Mr. Cole just to kind of go over some safety procedures, lockdown procedures, notification, because that most recent incident was in close proximity to his school. But just again, they're a partner, and they are a part of the success for the future of the city. Education's the key, and if we can educate our children, our youth, we give them opportunity, and then we can break that that cycle of that generational poverty. So we see them as critical to the future of Diamond Square, and we're excited, and we're optimistic. We know they have hearts, they have passion, and the teachers do just a wonderful job. And I'm fairly confident that that next year's grade, if they still do the grading system next year, will be a lot better, because I know they're hardworking and they're committed. That's one of the charter schools that even everybody in the school district is rooting for. Usually they have this tense relationship with charter schools and what they mean, but that one I think everybody's behind. And when I interviewed the principal, Mr. Cole, about what are some of his biggest challenges in teaching the students, I was expecting him to say something like learning to reason before you can learn, some of these higher end education things. And he said, yeah, that's part of it, but with some of these kids from this type of an area, you've got to teach them just to make good, healthy choices about living, nutrition, for example, what to eat or not, and to get a good night's sleep. Some of those kinds of basic skills that gives you the sense of the depth of the challenges they're up against in that area. Let's talk about another part of Cocoa. It's such a city of contrast sometimes. I was reading today that there was a new bike shop, craft beer, and another thing opening in Cocoa Village. Cocoa Village seems to be doing great. Are there new projects or anything else going on down there? Well, the Centennial Development Group, Jason and Eddie are just doing an amazing job on that project. I mean, transforming a building that was built probably back in the 50s, 60s into something that's modern, and it augments and just complements what's happening in Cocoa Village. The vitality, the activity, the old City Hall site. We do have a developer that we have an agreement with to come in and develop the old City Hall property at 603 Brevard, and the revised development agreement will be coming back before the redevelopment agency here in the next month or so. So we are seeing, a lot of interest in Cocoa Village. I mean, it's just a great place to be. I mean, people like to be in an environment. They like to be in an environment that's engaging, and everybody talks about making great places. Well, this is the example because this evolved over time. I mean, Cocoa Village is truly a village. It's not, it's not to take anything away from other developments when they develop like a Main Street or,
sure.
It's very contrived where this happened over the test of time. And and the merchants there are committed. They're great merchants. We get great merchants. We meet once a month with the merchants associations, and just again that interest of collaboration, partnership, and it's just very thriving and active. And we're very excited about the prospects, not just for Cocoa Village, but for other places as well within the city.
Well, I've been to the Cocoa Village Playhouse I think 3 times in the past 2 years. Sold out every time, but each time I was struck by the fact that it seemed the open storefronts and restaurants seemed to extend for another block each time I went up there, and it seems to be doing very well. One of the issues that is affecting a lot of cities is trains, all of a sudden. All Aboard Florida is one of these proposals to run express trains through pretty much any city that's on those tracks up to 32 times a day when it's fully operational. Does the city of Cocoa have a position on that, or?
Well, the city council as a whole is not taking a formal position. There's individual members that have individual opinions. From a staff perspective, we've met with the representatives of All Aboard Florida, and we do see, yes, are there some potential issues that we would like to see mitigated in terms of quiet zones and pedestrian crossings, the maintenance agreements with the expansion of the tracks, yes. But we also see the promise and the opportunity. I mean, the ability to move people throughout the state is, other than by car, is critical for our not just our county, but for the state as a whole. Cocoa, I believe, is well positioned with its proximity to the port to have an opportunity to have a Tier 2 stop. And so we certainly are working with All Aboard Florida, communicating with them, and staying apprised of what their schedule and their activities. The train service is one component of their model. You go further south, they're also they're embracing what made them great.
It's part of a real estate development.
It's real estate development, so it's not just the trains; it's also real estate. And we certainly are in a good position to provide, where our train station is located, the old, where the Roselle Jones and US 1, is to provide a facility that would enable to be multimodal. So if people from Orlando coming in, they could take the train over, and then they could take a bus and go over to the port. Save a lot of money than for all those buses that are traveling back and forth on 528. So we see it as an opportunity, plus the ability to, from somebody from Cocoa or in Brevard County, to, if we get a stop in Brevard, and ideally we believe it should be in Cocoa, is that the ability to go over to Orlando, or maybe connect with Sunrail, or the ability to go down to Miami, connect with MARTA, and it just opens up opportunities for Brevard County as a whole. So I mean, we're cautious, and we want to work with them and make sure that we're protected and the citizens are protected, but we also see that there's an opportunity to be had with All Aboard Florida.
What is the status of the station? I know that the city was looking at building that up for an Amtrak train or Amtrak service that could be going through there. I don't know what the status is of the Amtrak service, but I figured you might know about the station.
Well, we've had conversations, and since right now they're focused on getting their initial train going from Orlando down to Miami, and I understand it's going to be even a shorter route first because they still got to get some of the environmental impact stuff done, going from Orlando Airport over to what they call the Cocoa Curve.
Mm-hmm. That's All Aboard Florida, correct?
All Aboard Florida,
okay.
Correct. But we've held off on our station design, or redesign, if you will, because we want to make sure we take into account the needs for both Amtrak, in the future, because we still believe that will happen, mm-hmm. and then we also need to take into account for All Aboard Florida. So we're very cognizant that whatever we do, it needs to accommodate both. So we expressed, to Rusty Roberts, one of the vice presidents, that that we be kept informed of what their design criteria are, because the double track, it's a little bit different than Amtrak. So we're aware that there may be some design, accommodations that need to be made, and so we have not purposely done a redesign of the station. We don't want to, we don't want to expend taxpayers' funds prematurely until we know it's there.
What are some of the other points on your strategic plan? I know you answer to a city council. It's really up to them to decide the direction of the city. If I live in the city of Cocoa, where are my leaders taking me right now?
Okay, and I want to emphasize it's not my strategic plan. It's the community strategic plan, because while staff did a lot of the legwork and developed a lot of the data and identified the core organizational values and redefined our mission and went through an environmental scan and did a looking at what our strengths were, our weaknesses, what were the opportunities, what are the challenges or threats. We then subsequently submitted that, and we had a community meeting. We had an outside facilitator come in, working with the community and council, and there was changes made. So crime we've already discussed, public safety, the proper allocation of resources to maximize our efforts to be efficient and effective, or the city's image, working on that both physically and emotionally. People, you talk about Cocoa Village, people have an emotional attachment to Cocoa Village because it's a very good, pleasing environment. So we're looking at, those things, our branding, we kind of updated our logo, respecting the past, looking to the future, looking at issues of community development, specifically redevelopment. If we can't focus on areas in our underserved and disadvantaged areas, the Diamond Square redevelopment area, we've shared, and we're owning up to our problem, the issues that are in our community. And if we can't effectuate change in Diamond Square, that will affect all of the city of Cocoa, and to a large degree, it does affect Brevard County. So we're going to be fairly aggressive there. Economic development, we've talked about that. Employees, retaining a qualified workforce, and then they're not in any particular order, but also financial sustainability. We want to be ready, and we want to be smart with and be wise with the citizens' tax dollars, but we also want to be, in the event of something, like a great recession happens again, we, through attrition, we didn't lay anybody off, we didn't do furloughs, we certainly had wage freezes, but employees, as they retired or they left, those positions weren't filled. So we want to make sure that we are delivering smart government. We have gone through lately, we have automated a lot of our processes in terms of our forms, where we're going to an automated electronic agenda. We're trying to really advance the city, to be more efficient and effective, and utilizing the resources, technology that's out there to help us, get to that.
How's the city budget right now? I know you just came through the process. Where do things stand?
Well, where we stand right now, we are projected to our expenses probably will come in under what we budgeted last year, which is good. We will be using probably almost about $3.5 million out of our unassigned fund balance, or what people call reserves, and that will be used to. We've got there's about a $6 million increase in our budget this year.
Okay.
But keep in mind, $2.1 million are just related to the fire department to purchase a new ladder truck, 2 new engines, and a district chief vehicle. We have an aging fleet. We got to replace that. We also, the country's going to, you've probably heard of the P25 initiative, interoperability among radios and communications, so all agencies can speak to each other in case of a disaster. So we're doing a communication, our dispatch center. We're doing a redesign, buying new consoles, buying new radios. We're spreading over 4 years, so we're investing in that. We're investing in the other thing, a large driver out of that budget is Peachtree Street. It's phased, doing a complete street on Peachtree Street, and that's about $1.8 million. So out of about $5.9 million increase, 3.9 of it is just sitting in 2 projects.
Okay.
And then there's a bunch of other smaller projects in terms of, I've got a detailed list, but they're just small projects, but they all relate back to our strategic plan. We're trying to align where we make strategic investments with our strategic issues, so that we can advance, what we believe to be the most important issues affecting our community to improve the quality of life by our residents.
Is it hard sometimes from a position of city leadership to get people from one side of US 1 to understand the needs and things that you're trying to do on the other side of US 1? I mean, you have such a diverse city, whether it's people who live in condos right off the Indian River or old restored houses and a beautiful Cocoa Village type of area, or somebody who's struggling with crime and blight in another part of Cocoa. How do you get the conversation to work?
Well, I think the Mayor's Crime Awareness and Prevention Summit is a great start, in terms of opening that dialogue with the community. At the end of the day, and I said it earlier, but the success of Diamond Square also relates to the success of the city in terms of its renaissance and its revitalization. If we cannot effectuate change in the areas that are most impoverished and disadvantaged, then it will affect our ability to have change or growth in other areas of the city.
We'll hope for the best for Cocoa.
Thank you,
Thanks
sir.
for joining us here
Appreciate it.
today. Well, that's our program. Thanks for joining us in the Florida Today newsroom. Remember, you can publish your reaction to this show or comment on anything you read in Florida Today. Just send an email to letters@floridatoday.com or reach me at facebook.com/MattReedNews. I'm Matt Reed. We'll see you next Wednesday right here on WEFS TV and FloridaToday.com.